I know a lot of people out there, myself included, have had the unfortunate experience of dealing with people in some sort of customer service role. So today, in honor of all the terrible people that we've had to deal with, we're going to take a look at Tales from Retail and read some stories that people got here. Here, let the old lady help you load the heavy patio set. A few short years ago, I worked at a grocery store. For the summer, they would get a few sets of outdoor furniture. It was my job to get the boxes sets from the bag when they wanted to purchase. One day, 4 guys about 30 years old purchased the largest set we had in one box. So I confirmed they had a vehicle that would accommodate the furniture, and they did. A full-size pickup. Perfect. I headed to the back to get it out of storage, load it on a flat cart, and return it to the front of the store. By myself, no assistance. When I approached the customers, they confidently told me to step aside while they loaded it. Sure, no problem. Except they kept trying to get a two-handed grip on the large box. After several failed attempts, I asked if I could make a suggestion. They straightened up and said sure. I positioned the cart at the base of the tailgate. The box was already taller than the tailgate, so I lifted it from the bottom using the tailgate as a lever and slid the heavy box into the tailgate. Closed the tailgate, stepped back and said, "Thank you, have a great day," and went back in the store. Best day ever working retail. They didn't say another word. I mean, for 4 guys in their 30s couldn't pick up a furniture set. I mean, a patio set, a lot of patio furniture is typically relatively light. It's all sort of like wicker things and, you know, thin materials that won't get damaged by the rain. So it must have been some pretty weak guys, or they were really just that dumb. I don't know. But yeah, I don't know how old you are, but hey, good on you for doing it the intelligent way. But yeah, a lot of times you encounter people that just lack the brain cells to do things the way that it should be done. And yeah, as long as you didn't hurt yourself, hey, great story. Good on you for helping them out. I'm sure they felt kind of silly or came up with some story as to why they couldn't do it. So, weird encounter with a customer. So I work in the dairy section of a big grocery store. One day on my lunch break, I grabbed food from the hot bar and went to check out. There was this older lady in front of me finishing up. So I waited by the card reader and I put my food box on the conveyor belt, not even moving, just looking at my phone. Suddenly I look up and this lady is barely a foot in front of me and close to my face, grinning hard and saying, "Do I know you?" Then she says I was too close to her, even though she literally walked toward me from the other side. I was confused, but I didn't argue. I just went ahead and stepped back. Even the cashier lady was like, "You didn't even move, she came over to you." Told a coworker in maintenance section later, and he said she probably liked you. But all I could think was, if an older man did this to a young woman my age, 20, it wouldn't be brushed off like this. Anyways, just weird. Retail stays wild. Yeah, no, this reminds me of a lot of times talking to customers and just having, you know, polite conversation and the things that people choose to get offended about sometimes. Especially, you know, as a man talking to a woman, there were some times in the conversation where female customers would feel the need to interject that they had a husband or a boyfriend, and sometimes they're in their 40s or 50s, and it's just sometimes you take pause and you just have a moment in your head where it's like, "Ma'am, I don't care. I wasn't interested." But you know, acting like it was a problem that you created. Yeah, some people are just strange like that. Some people just live in their own little bubble of a world where everything revolves around them and everybody just wants something with them, whether it's a, you know, relationship or a problem. But I don't know, maybe, you never know, maybe this was this strange lady's version of a joke, and, you know, maybe she thought it was funny. Who knows? But yeah, you never can tell what people are going to get randomly upset about, pick a fight over. Anti-self-checkout guy who's so over the top. I work in a small store that has self-checkouts and regular cashiers. For what it's worth, the company I work for is super cheap, and oftentimes the cashier will need to step away briefly to fix an aisle or help a coworker. That guy was me today, and I needed to clean up a spill that was 3/4 down an aisle. So a bit of a piss off, but whatever. As I'm doing that, a 40-ish-year-old guy signals me to cash and has 2 small containers in his hand. I didn't want to open the cash because I don't want a long line forming. So, oh, you mean the cash register, the line? I'm sorry, struggling to follow along with what you're trying to see here. I didn't want to open the cash because I don't want a long line forming, so I decided to take him on self-checkout. But I do it just for him while he stands beside me. Simple, right? Nope. He vehemently says no to self, even with him having to do nothing, and that's his freedom of choice to do whatever he wants. Right as he says that, I just sighed and said, whatever, man. Took him on cash. I bit my tongue because I wanted to call him over dramatic, but I told him that people are going to use it regardless if you want to try to make a statement. And he replied with, oh, well, it's my freedom of choice. I genuinely cannot believe these chronically online Facebook people exist in the real world because, my God, they're so over dramatic and corny. Yeah, I tend to have the opposite problem whenever I'm going through the store, and it's in the sense that I can't stand all these old people who go through the self-checkout line. I think that before you go through the self-checkout line, you have to get a qualification first. You have to pass a test that you understand the technology, you don't need too much help, and you're not going to be too slow. Because good Lord, standing behind some of these people with 10 items in their cart and just waiting on them as they try to figure out their whole existence standing at the self-checkout drives me crazy. So quite frankly, I think a lot of those people need to go through with the cashier helping them out. But yeah, I all these sort of, times where people think they're standing on business, or, I get that there are certain instances in which, you shouldn't have to do the work yourself. And yeah, it is a service that's being provided to you. I understand that from that perspective, but come on now, people helping you out, people trying to do you a solid, especially when they're short-staffed. But then again, nobody ever cares if you're short-staffed. They act like their problem is the only problem that exists in an entire massive store of people. But yeah, no, I don't get what people's deal is with that kind of stuff. But yeah, old people, I do agree. You know what? I agree with the 40-year-old guy. Old people should not be allowed to use self-checkout. Once you hit your 40s, that's GG. Go home. You go to the self-checkout line. You don't need to. You need to go through with the cashier. Customer buys subwoofer and complains because it only plays bass. I'm happy to help customers and answer questions if asked, but when someone just points to an item and says they want that one, I just sell them what they say they want. This guy bought a subwoofer box, subwoofer amplifier, and amplifier wiring kit. He comes back a few days later and says he can't get any words put of... What? He comes back a few days later and says he can't get any words put of it no matter how he turns them knobs. I'm assuming he can't get the words in the songs. I tell him subwoofers are for bass only and do not play words. I took him to the radio display and demonstrated playing just speakers, playing just subwoofers, and then playing speakers and subwoofers together. Why didn't you tell me these wouldn't play words? You never asked and seemed to know exactly what you wanted. If you had asked before buying, I would have been glad to answer questions and demonstrate the difference. Yeah, a lot of people's arrogance and assuming, what they're getting, and for a lot of people out there, I'll start with this caveat that, sometimes you walk into a store and it is very clear that the employees there do not care and won't even help you with the most basic of questions. They can't even be bothered to try to figure out what you're asking them. But a lot of places, if you're nice enough just to ask nicely and, you know, come with a kind attitude and be polite to people, people will help you out. They'll help you out as much as they possibly can. But I remember I used to work at a Chinese restaurant, and there was one menu item in particular that was just, I don't know what it was about it, because I'd say it was just a bad menu item, but there were some people that loved it to death. They would order it every time without fail. But for anybody who was new to trying it, it was a 50-50 shot as to whether they would like it, to the point where anybody who would order it that I noticed wasn't a regular customer, I would warn them up front of, hey, a lot of people don't really care for this that much. And, you know, you can order it if you want to, but I'm just going to warn you, it's like a 50-50 shot. You might not like it that much. And then from that point on, hey, it's on them if they do or don't like it. But there were still people, after warning them, who would say they didn't like it and ask for something else. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, me personally, if I go into a store, don't ask for help, or I order some menu item that I'm not sure about, I haven't tried before, it's incumbent on me if I don't like that, unless it's just absolutely disgusting and, you know, not food. But let's be honest, that doesn't happen very often. But yeah, no, if it's just not to my liking, not to my taste, then I'm not going to bother the employees of whatever establishment I'm at to make it better. And, you know, especially something like this, just return the subwoofer. Don't make it somebody else's problem for your poor planning and poor decision making. So yeah, if you're unsure about something, I guarantee you there's somebody in the store that you can find, you know, especially these more specialty stores. If you go into any sort of these specialty stores, like for electronics equipment, any sort of music stores, any sort of store that has like a niche sort of, you go there for a subset of a particular item, there's usually some nerds there who just, I hate customer reviews. We do home appliance delivery for your local big box store, and one of our clients takes customer reviews way too seriously. Delivery time frame provided to customer when scheduling between 9 a.m. and 10 a.m. Delivery ETA provided to customer via text with a link to track the truck in real time. Text sent the day before and day of, 9:41 a.m. Actual arrival time, 9:38 a.m. Customer review, 1 out of 5 stars. Customer complaint, I was ready and waiting at 9 a.m., but they didn't arrive until 9:40. Wasted my time. Now we have to have a meeting to discuss what could have been done differently, which is required by our client for any 1-star reviews. Yeah, there's a real problem with any customer reviews that you see, and I invite anybody to do this. If you're ever perusing all of the customer reviews, whether it be for a restaurant, store, whatever, take a look at those 1-star reviews and go look at those people's profiles in the other reviews that they have left. You do enough digging, and a lot of times the people who leave 1-star reviews are people who only leave 1-star reviews, and they only ever log on to give reviews whenever they're frustrated or upset about something. So yeah, the whole customer review, which is dumb. I just, and sometimes it's the complaints are some of the dumbest things to give a low rating on. Especially with a lot of, if you look at a lot of manufacturing places and warehouse type places, you look at the reviews for a company, and a lot of those is, so for any sort of company that has truck deliveries, so the big semi trucks that bring in boxes of product, whatever you got, food, oftentimes it will be the truck drivers that go on to Google reviews or you know, Yelp or whatever, to leave reviews for these places about how easy it was for them to do a truck delivery. So this place, you know, whatever business you're looking at could have a 2-star review based on the convenience of you know, the truckers, which is, you know, may or may not be a fair argument, but it really has nothing to do with the business. So yeah, I definitely feel you on the reviews. It seems like a lot of times it's just BS. So and especially if you have to have a meeting to discuss every time just for some disgruntled idiot who doesn't understand the process. Yeah, that's incredibly frustrating. So I feel sorry for you, but man, yeah, people's opinions sometimes you just got to take it with a grain of salt, and people's dissatisfaction. Sometimes there's just nothing you can do to please people. So I really hope that your delivery service does not get that many 1-star reviews, because that would be so annoying to have to deal with, especially for any sort of service that has to provide a window of time and it's not direct, because people are way too exacting when it comes to that stuff. And for anybody who's never done that kind of work, like, there are things that cause people to be behind that aren't their problem. It's you know, any delivery service, they're not just being lazy. It's possible they're being lazy, but most of the time you got to consider traffic. You got to consider how long they had to wait to get their truck loaded. So, you know, give people the benefit of the doubt. Don't just assume that they were just taking their sweet time getting over to you, because a lot of times it wasn't really their fault. But be kind to people, or try your best. There's a high chance that I encountered a minor trying to buy alcohol. I work in a Midwestern United States grocery store, and my job is to shop for people who order groceries online. Occasionally I give out groceries when needed. This happened 3 days ago. I was coordinating for a couple hours. Coordinating means I'm in charge of making sure the pickers have their breaks, and coordinator gives out groceries to the customers. There was a customer who had alcohol on order. She ordered a 4-pack of Guinness beer as well as other items. When she arrived to pick it up, I noticed she seemed very young, maybe in her late teens or early 20s. I asked for her ID, and she rummaged around for a couple seconds, and then she said she didn't have her ID with her. I informed her that I could not legally give her the alcohol without proper identification. I asked if she could ask someone else who was of legal age to come pick it up, and she said there was nobody she could call. She asked me what alcohol was in the order, and I said it was a pack of Guinness. She said she thought it was non-alcoholic. I'm not familiar with Guinness to know that there is a non-alcoholic kind, as I don't drink those kinds of alcohol. I'm more of a cocktail whiskey person. I told her I would take the alcohol out of the order and just give her the groceries. I also made sure she got a refund on the alcohol. I was telling a story to my nail tech today, and she said she thought the customer was trying to hustle alcohol from me and was not of legal age. She could be right, but I'll never know for sure. So there's a chance that I refused the sale to a minor. Yeah, it was a smart idea to refuse to. For anybody who doesn't know, there is, I have a friend whose uncle is a cop, and back in the day, when he was a teenager, this cop would hire him to go into clubs that were 18 plus, but also sold alcohol, and, you know, stores, and try to get people to sell him alcohol. He said he hated that job, actually, because people were being pretty cool and nice with him, and he was getting people in trouble. But yeah, they will actually send people in who are underage to try to solicit alcohol as a part of police sting operations. So if you're somebody who has any dealings with alcohol, do so at your own risk. You know, letting people through. I'm not saying you shouldn't let the old man with gray hairs just take his alcohol, but if it seems a little risky, just know that there is a risk there, as there are setups for people who send in minors to pick up alcohol with the police. So that does exist. So it was a smart idea not to give her alcohol. You know, who knows? It could have just been some random girl out there that day. I don't know how often they would really target a grocery store, but yeah, I wouldn't risk it. It's not worth it. Not worth going to jail for. That's certainly a fact. First experience with a rude customer. This is my first job in retail, and I've only been working here for a week and a half. Today, I was on tills, which I usually love, but at the end of the day, I was called on tills. A woman in her maybe late 60s came up to my till and immediately made a point of telling me that she didn't want a hole to be made in a sweater she was buying from the security tag in quite a harsh tone. My security tag remover wasn't working, so I had to ask a colleague, the customer giving me a dirty look. Then when I got the sweater back, I was about to fold it and she snatched it from me to inspect whether I had made a hole in the sweater sleeve. I do the payment thing as she checks it and give her the receipt. She looks at me all annoyed and tells me off for not folding her sweater even though she snatched it away from me. Then she asked to talk to my manager as she said my service was terrible. My manager was walking by the time and asked what the problem was. And the woman explains it in a way that sounds like it was my fault. She wouldn't let me fold it. I quietly told my manager what actually happened, and after all that, the woman didn't even let me fold her sweater. I was pretty pissed off as I am quite sensitive, and the remaining customers saw and were quite nice with me due to the situation. My first rude customer, everybody. Yeah, that's something you just got to get used to, and by and large, it'll just... I've noticed like a lot of rude customers, it'll just be out of the blue and usually over something stupid, and it usually doesn't have anything going on, anything having to do with, anything you've done. It's usually people who are just, I guess, miserable in life. I'll go back to the example of working in a Chinese restaurant. There was one day where I had just walked in for my shift for the day. I had literally not a single customer, and there were a couple of orders, takeout orders that were already sitting on the counter. So I walk in, there's 2 or 3 orders. I look at them. I look at the register, see what orders they are, see the phone numbers, just to get an eye on what's going on in the store. And this lady, she walked in, and she comes up, normal interaction through most of it. She gives me her phone number. I was like, oh, okay, yep, your order's ready. It's right here. I grab it. I grab the bag. I hand it over to her, and she said, that's everything, right? And I said, yes, ma'am, that should be all of it. And what I thought she meant by the question was, that's the only bag. There's not 2 different bags in the order, because sometimes people order enough to where it's several bags. I was like, yes, that should be, just that bag. I didn't see a different one sitting over there. What I meant by that, which I don't know any other way that this could have been taken as rudely, but yeah, I ultimately what I told her was, yes, ma'am, that should be it. And she said, well, I didn't ask you what you think it should be. I asked if that was it or not, you little prick. And I was so taken aback. And she started unpacking the entire bag and digging through all of her stuff. And I just explained to her, I was like, I just came in for the day, ma'am. I have no idea what you ordered. So probably best to double check. And, she angrily unpacked all of her stuff, checked to make sure it was there, and then angrily packed it all back together and started stomping out of the store. And I just said, have a good day, ma'am. Some people, I just don't. And maybe this was a one-off. Maybe she was just having a bad day. I don't know. And maybe she wasn't on her medication. Who knows? But yeah, you'll get more rude customers. And a lot of times, I'll say my rudest customers are the ones that were in situations where it didn't have anything to do with me. There's been days where I've had off days where I wasn't feeling great. I probably answered people, in a way that wasn't the cheeriest, that things like that. And generally speaking, people don't catch me on those days. It's usually days where I'm doing all right, where people just decide to hit you out of left field and act absolutely rude. But yeah, don't try to take it too much to heart. There's just people out there that are just ready to be miserable and drag everybody down in their misery with them. So, and you'll get more of these people. There's just nothing you can do about it. So just keep your chin up, do the best job that you can. Don't worry about all the rude people. I won't break safety protocol just because you're in a hurry. I work as a merchandiser in a big box store. I delegate sales/product knowledge questions to whatever department I'm working in that day. If it's an inventory related thing, I can usually help. A customer approached me while I was working on clearance and asked if I could get something down for him. When I asked him to point it out, he was rather brief and impatient, even offering to get on the ladder and get it himself. Definitely a safety violation. What he was requesting was not only high, but also had a ton of other merchandise stacked on top of it. Even if I was 10 feet tall, it would have been nearly impossible to get it down from the top rung without pulling it out directly and having these other boxes flying everywhere. I turned to him and told him it wasn't happening without a machine. We use power lifts for things that are too high, big, or bulky to get down with a ladder. He complained to his friend this was ridiculous and that I needed power equipment for something so simple. I didn't care. I've fallen off a ladder before at a past job, and I was surely not risking it happening for someone rude. A couple minutes later, I returned to the aisle driving the machine. Unsurprisingly, they were gone, probably to go to a competitor. I decided that since I was there, I'd downstock the item anyways. If they returned, it would be there. If not, someone nicer could buy it. My supervisor said I made a good call and thanked me for keeping myself and others safe. Yeah, no, that's something. If you are new to retail, and you're new to dealing with customer interactions, don't break the rules for people. And it's not even about whether they're kind to you or whatever, because what honestly will happen is you'll break the rules once, and then they'll come back and ask you to do it again, and they'll act like it was a regular thing. Even if you went extremely out of your way and broke the rules and did something you shouldn't have done, just for them that one time, they will complain and act like that was a normal thing. They'll say, well, this person did it for me last time I was in here. So it's in a big way, doing things like that are around the rules are like leaving out crumbs for the rats. They'll be back, I promise you. I used to work at a grocery store, and this is post the days of the massive coupon clipping shows, and they put all these rules on the coupons so people couldn't abuse the system anymore. So these days, most coupons have a limit of like 5 items. Sometimes it's, you can use 1 coupon, use 3 coupons, whatever it is. There's rules listed at the bottom of the coupons, and a lot of them are digital now, so it kind of already is designed to prevent from stacking like people used to. But we used to have people who would bring in a bunch of carts of stuff, and we're talking like 1 to 2 filled to the brim grocery carts just full of stuff, and they would get out their coupons, and which is fine. If you want to use your coupons, but the problem is that people could override the coupons, and whenever people overrode the coupons, those people would come back, and I kid you not, there was some lady at some point that she had 2 massive carts full of groceries, things she didn't need. Let's be so for real. You didn't need all that in the first place. You were just getting whatever deal you thought you were getting. But she had 2 full carts of groceries, and she was literally begging the cashier to override the coupon that she had because she was past the limit for the amount of things she picked off the shelf. I kid you not. She had her hands together, wringing them back and forth, begging, saying, please, please, please. Don't break the rules for these people, because you'll do it once and they'll expect you to do it again. And it's usually for something ridiculous. It's just, the rules for the coupon are printed on there. Why can't you just read the coupons? But people working at this grocery store, you're maybe 18, 19, sometimes younger than that, working at the cashier. You think you're doing people a favor, you're trying to be nice, you're trying to be accommodating, you're trying to be whatever, but they'll be back, and they will abuse your kindness, and they will be entitled to it moreover. So don't do that for people. Just follow the rules, and I promise you, if they're frustrated and they're all pissy and upset about you not breaking the rules for them, and they don't come back, hey, it took that small interaction to get rid of them, and they don't come back. Hey, good on them. see you never. I'm glad you're not coming back. So yeah, just don't break the rules for people. It's a waste of your time. Customer has my back about annoying policy. Years later, I've returned the sentiment. Okay, so one of my biggest pet peeves when I worked retail was my manager's insistence that I had to check up on the customers like every 5 minutes. The store I worked in was small enough that you could see everyone and what they're doing for the register. It was especially annoying when I had stuff to do behind the register. So this instance several years ago, I'm in the store and it's very slow. No one is in there at the moment, but inventory is in and I have something to do. Someone walks in, I greet them. Hey, my name is Sam. Let me know if you need anything. List some sales. The customer's like, okay, and they go about browsing. Manager comes out from the back, probably not even 10 minutes later, walks over to me and asks if I helped the one person in the store. I told him I greeted him and if he needed anything to come get me. Doesn't satisfy the manager, so I'm forced to walk over to the guy and ask him again, not even 10 minutes have gone by, if he needs help. He says no. He's just looking around and seeing what's on sale. I leave him alone and he continues to wander about the store. Only roughly 5 minutes go by when my manager himself walks up to the guy and asks if he needs help. Dude is now clearly annoyed but politely tells my manager he's fine on his own. Manager comes over to the register and stands next to me. Just a little over 5 minutes go by and he tells me to go again and ask if the guy needs help. I walk over to him and I can clearly tell him on his face he's ultra annoyed. So I say low enough that my manager can't hear, hey, I'm sorry, I know you don't need help, but he's making me ask. The guy is still annoyed, but there's a look of understanding now. So he goes rather loudly so my manager can hear, thanks, I'm fine, I don't need help. If I do, I can find you. I'm not a baby who needs to be walked around the store. I smile and go back to the register where my manager is standing there now with this look I can't even describe. When he finally goes to the bag, for the rest of the day, he didn't bother me about bothering customers. Cut to present day. I'm a customer wandering the mall. I go into a clothing store. There's like 4 people working there. I'm greeted and proceed to wander the store because I'm just browsing. I'm barely in the store for 10 minutes and every single worker there has to come up to me and ask if I needed help. After 2 of them had come up to me for a second time, I finally go, you know what? If I'm not okay, could you get your manager, please? No, you know what? I'm not okay. Could you get your manager, please? The girl I asked looks confused but goes and gets a manager. Manager comes up middle with that standard overly strained customer service smile and asks me what's wrong. I told her I'm annoyed with the fact that I'm basically being followed around the store. I don't need to be asked 20 times if I need help. If I need help, I can find someone. I'm just browsing, and all this badgering is making the experience very less enjoyable, and now I don't want to shop here anymore. I understand that this is a policy you guys make your employees do, but I'm letting you know right now that is a very bad policy. I'm going to leave now and I want you to know it's because of that. Her smile very much dims and is clear on her face. She's trying to process a proper sentence to respond. Meanwhile, I noticed a little off to my left 2 employees watching us, both smirking and smiling, one doing their best to hold in laughter. And the other one is quickly texting on her phone, I'm assuming to some kind of sales associate group chat or a friend. Before the manager can finish her apology, I just politely tell her I'm leaving again and exit the store. Also, I know some stores do this to prevent theft, but you don't need to hound your customers. I absolutely agree. This is one that I hate being approached. I hate walking onto car lots for this reason, because, you know, you walk onto a car lot and the annoying salespeople hunt you down immediately. I'm just looking. If I need any help, I will come find you. And that goes for any of the stores that I walk into. Like, generally speaking, I know what I'm in here for, especially for something that, you know, it's just like a store that you could go into all the time. Anything like a Walmart, well, they don't care at Walmart, but any sort of store where it's grocery stores, stuff like that. Like, you know what you're in there for. If you need help, you can find somebody to ask. Now, I don't mind, you know, on the way in, somebody stopping you and say, hey, welcome to the store. You know, just ask someone if you need something. Cool. Now, that's a fine interaction. I don't mind having casual small talk with any of the employees that are working there. But yeah, being badgered nonstop about, you know, do you need help? Being asked questions like, no, I don't. Especially, you know, again, especially if it's a store that people go into commonly and it's, you know, clothing, groceries, stuff like that. Like, you know what you're in there for. if you're looking for something in particular, you can go find somebody to talk to. But you know, I do appreciate people's willingness to help, but you can honestly tell the difference between, you know, when people are just being generally friendly and you know, versus somebody who's being forced to ask this question because they know people don't care. I mean, yeah, it's just not worth it. And I don't know. I get that it is an anti-theft measure, as well as something that kind of lets you know that, you know, there's people around that can help you if you need it, but and are willing to help you if you need the help. But it only takes one of those, one person as you walk in, and even then, you know, just a simple gesture of "How are you doing today?" Polite small talk is better than being asked if you need help. But I definitely understand the frustration. Good to get your licks in. Nice payback. Crying won't get you anywhere. I work for a small chain grocery store. By some miracle, they've managed to keep egg prices somewhat reasonable, but it's limited to 1 dozen per customer. I'm checking out a customer and notice she has 4 dozen in her cart. I said, "Unfortunately, eggs are limited to 1 dozen per customer." She says, "Yeah, I seen the signs, but I wondered if you make an exception because my husband is vegetarian and we spend thousands of dollars here." No. I called over a manager. She got more pissed off and said I was rude and accused her of stealing, which I didn't. My boss told me to take a walk and she'd finish the transaction because this lady kept blaming me for everything. When I came back, boss said she started crying after I left. Yeah, this is one thing that just irritates me about this is the whole we spend thousands of dollars here. Okay, that's good for you. I used to hear that from people all the time. We spend good money here. I don't care. That has nothing to do with anything. Just because you are a regular customer here doesn't mean that we're going to change the rules for you. It may get you certain perks. There may be, you know, we may be nicer to you, may make your food faster because we recognize, you know, that you're a regular customer. You know, may have a better rapport with people that gets you through whatever process you're going through faster. But you don't get to subvert the rules because you spend money at an establishment where you spend money. That's stupid, especially at a grocery store. Yeah, everybody spends thousands of dollars at the grocery store. Cry me a river. But another thing that I don't understand, for any of these limited price, like limited quantity stuff, can't you just walk back in the door? You buy one and then you turn around, go buy another, or go back in the next day, buy another dozen on any day you come home from work. Just stop by the store and buy another dozen eggs. I don't think anybody's keeping track of it. You just can't buy 4 dozen at once. So yeah, no, and if this is such a sacred transaction and by some miracle they're tracking your credit card information and how many times you swipe for eggs, just pay for it in cash. I don't think anybody's taking it that critically, but yeah, there are ways around these little rules, and as frustrating as it is, I mean, you're just trying to do your job, which is limiting people from buying extra eggs. But yeah, no, just relax a little bit. It's not that critical. Nobody cares that you spend money there. Nobody's going to make an exception for you because your husband's a vegetarian. And the excuses that people come up with sometimes are just ridiculous. Like your husband's food choices has anything to do with me and my job. It doesn't. But I don't know. I don't want to laugh at people who are crying, but because maybe she was just having a rough day. You never know. But yeah, it's just ridiculous. Eggs are not something to get upset over. So just walk away. Just call it a day. Don't create a whole interaction because you didn't get what you wanted. No, that isn't my card. We recently had a lady lose her debit card in our store. One of our employees found it on the floor just a few minutes after she left. I decided to post on our local Facebook page that this lady left her card here, and if anyone knows her, to please let her know. We've done this multiple times before with no issues. About an hour after I posted this, the store phone rings and I answered. The lady says, I saw your Facebook post. You need to take it down. That is not my card. My employer saw this post and they're freaking out. I say, I'm sorry, ma'am. I was just trying to be helpful. She cut me off and she said, if you want to be helpful, you need to take that card to a local bank branch, not post about it online. You've caused me a lot of trouble. Take that post down now. I responded, yep, have a good one, and hung up. I knew from the way she was acting that it was her card and most likely a business card for her job, and according to Facebook, she's an office manager. I texted my manager and asked what he would like me to do. He said that since it seems like she doesn't want to retrieve the card, I can go ahead and destroy it. The next day she comes in and politely says that she lost her card here and was trying to pick it up. Another manager was on duty at the time and told her we disposed of it. She got upset and she told me she'd be in to pick it up today. The manager said, that's not the story we heard. The lady went wide-eyed and paled and immediately left the store without another word. Yeah, you can't, you're not that slick for anybody who tries to, get around the system doing this kind of stuff. I mean, people will catch on to whenever you're trying to, you didn't have any interaction with your manager. You were embarrassed because you lost your card and it was posted online. I don't know why you were embarrassed. It's not that big a deal as long as they didn't have your information up there. But people lose their credit cards all the time. And it would be a pretty normal interaction that, when I worked at a Chinese restaurant, I remember there was several times where people had just left their cards on accident. And there was one actually, the first thing I would try to do if it was a takeout order would be to call them back if I could figure out what their number was. There was a couple times where I reached out to somebody on Instagram and I just sent them a message and said, hey, you forgot your card. Just come pick it up when you get a sec. But there was this one time that this lady lost her debit card and she called in, which is fine. She called in and said, hey, did you guys, she had been a dining customer and she's like, did you guys see my card? And I knew what table she was sitting at and I went over and I checked. I went through the creases of the seats, did everything I could to make sure that her card wasn't there, moved all the furniture around, right? So I stopped, did that real quick while she was still on the phone, went back to the phone and said, oh, I'm sorry, ma'am. We don't see it anywhere here. And she's like, oh, okay, that's fine. So I think that's the end of it. Until a police officer shows up about an hour later asking us to see if we could review the footage. But that's the thing. The police officer obviously knew that the lady lost her card and we didn't have anything to do with it. I told her right off the bat. She said, did some lady come in here losing her credit card? And I was like, yes, ma'am. And she asked to review our footage and I said, yeah, sure, go ahead. And told her where she was sitting. I told her she can look behind the counter to see if we had it, any of that stuff. And several weeks later, I had bumped into that. The police officer was a semi-regular at that restaurant. And come to find out, the lady had lost her card getting back into her car and it fell between the cracks of the seats. So, she was accusing us of some sort of wrongdoing, acting like we're withholding her credit card from her when in reality she just made a dumb mistake. So yeah, it's always best to cross all your T's and dot all your I's before you go accusing people of some greater problem like that. Just try to resolve it, especially over a card. Worst case scenario, cancel your card and order a new one. It's not that big a deal. What did you do to make him upset? When I worked in the electronics section of a major retailer, I was one of the go-to cell phone experts. I was usually patient and kind, even going so far as to set up contracts for burner phones, something we didn't typically offer to do. One day, I was calling to help a gentleman find a phone that would meet his needs. However, he started speaking to me in a rude attitude from the moment I said hello. I began asking him basic questions like, do you need minutes or unlimited? And are you looking for a smartphone or a flip phone? Each question seemed to make him angrier and angrier. he started insulting me, calling me names, and claiming I didn't know what I was doing. At that point, I told him I was done helping him and wished him good luck finding what he needs. Then I walked away. Later, my manager came to talk to me, asking if I had been rude to a customer. I explained my side of the story, and to my surprise, she laughed. She told me she had already asked the customer to leave, saying, "What did you do to upset my name? He's the kindest employee we have." Hey, good on your manager for having your back. It's always good to have a manager that knows what you are, who you are and what you're about. Especially if you're a good worker, that'll actually stand up for you and have a backbone and have your back. So good on the manager, definitely. But again, these people in there just upset over nothing. It's crazy to me. It reminds me of a time a buddy of mine works in a pizza shop, and he was telling me there's this one time he got a call 10 minutes before close. He said a lot of people, will ignore the phone calls that close to close, just let it ring out until, time's ready because they're already shutting down the kitchen, everything's clean, XYZ, right? Already ready to walk away for the night. So they basically had the entire shop closed up, weren't going to make any more pizzas for the night. And this guy called in 10 minutes left. So, he broke the unspoken rule, took his order, got everything ready again, made a different mess. And the guy had requested half mushrooms, half pepperoni. And this particular friend is very good at explaining things, very good at talking people through things. Very meticulous in terms of how he explains things to people. So I genuinely know that it was not him who was the problem. But it was a difference of, he said half pepperoni, half mushrooms. What he meant was he wanted half of the pizza to have pepperoni, mushrooms, half of it cheese. But the way he explained it was half of it with pepperoni and then the other half with mushrooms. So the entire pizza was covered in something. He comes in to collect his pizza. He's upset because he opens up the pizza and immediately sees it's not what he wants, right? Despite the fact that he had already called in the order 10 minutes before close. The restaurant is closed at this point, right? My friend sees that he's upset about the order that he'd received. So he says, "Okay, sir, I can remake it for you." He was so mad about this stupid pizza. My friend was willing to stay even longer to make this pizza for him and make it right. He was so mad about this stupid pizza. He stormed out, and the front of the store had big glass windows. And as he's storming out, he took this pizza that was hot, fresh out of the oven, and just slung it against the glass. All of the hot cheese, hot dough, hot sauce that just went all over the front of the store, and he stormed out. So on top of the fact that my friend was already doing him a solid, he threw a little temper tantrum and made a bigger mess for him to clean up before he had to leave for the night. Why? Who knows? Just because he felt like being a jerk. Because there was some misunderstanding, some miscommunication that was worth getting that upset about. So, just never know. It doesn't always matter how helpful you are to people. It has a lot to do with the temperament of the people that you interact with. So, but I will circle back. Good on your manager. I'm glad you have a manager that actually cares about you. That's good. I know that a lot of you will not like, comment, or subscribe, but I greatly appreciate any input you have towards my videos. And I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you have a good day.